Welcome back. In this series of videos, we will be discussing a new lesson, that is human health and diseases. So we will be discussing in detail about the different diseases seen in human beings, what are the reasons and causes of these diseases, and also in the second part of the lesson we will be discussing how the body has a system in place to protect the body from different disease causing factors. So let us begin the discussion. Health and disease. So when we hear the term health or healthy, the first thing that comes into our mind is such a person is free from diseases. So when we say that somebody is healthy, it automatically implies that they are free from any sort of disease. And when we say that somebody has a disease, it automatically implies that they are not healthy. But it is not the case always. So somebody who is free from disease, they may not be healthy. How or why? For this we need to understand the definition of the word health. In the earlier days, it was thought that health is a condition where the body is free from all diseases, but that is not right. According to WHO, World Health Organization, health is defined as, so according to WHO, health is a state or condition of complete or total physical, mental and social well-being. So if a person is totally fit physically, mentally and socially, then such a person can be called as healthy. So it is a condition or state where all three factors, physically somebody has to be fit, mentally they should be sound, and socially also they should be sound. So if you look at the definition in total, health can be attained by means of personal hygiene, and it is also affected by the environment, the society, public hygiene. So if somebody can maintain these two, they can be healthy. But health is also affected by other factors such as genetic disorders or defects. So if by birth itself they have some kind of genetic disorder or defect, then it results in them being not healthy. So health is affected by this. Health is also affected by infections, and health is affected by one's lifestyle choices, that is the type of food they eat, whether they have access to clean drinking water, and whether they have some kind of addictions. So if somebody who is addicted to smoking, alcohol or drugs, they may not be physically or mentally healthy. So about this also we will touch upon briefly at the end of the lesson how various addictions they affect one's health. So let's take the first 2 points, personal hygiene and public hygiene. If one is able to maintain this, they can be healthy. Personal hygiene, of course, taking bath regularly, eating a balanced diet, good contaminate, clean food, clean drinking water. So if somebody has access to it, they can be healthy. Also getting the right amount of exercise for an active lifestyle is also essential. So eat well, exercise well, and also sleep well. The proper amount of rest also plays an important role in maintaining a good personal hygiene as well as health. Also public hygiene. So public hygiene involves maintaining clean surroundings. So the place where one stays, the surrounding should be clean. That is, proper disposal of waste and excreta should be done, and as far as possible avoid stagnation of water near the houses, because those are breeding grounds for various disease causing organisms. Also public health checkups should be done by the government hospitals or other government clinics. Also immunization programs conducted by the municipality or by the panchayat. So regular immunization programs, all this together, it is the work of the society, or all this will help in maintaining a good public hygiene. Not throwing waste onto the roads, littering around the home, spitting on the roads, etc. All these could be carriers of disease causing organisms. So by these two important points, one can remain healthy. So by looking at the definition, it is very clear that just the absence of a disease does not make somebody healthy. So there should be total physical, mental and social well-being. Let us look at the next word, that is disease. So if you break down this word, this is, so there is some kind of a discomfort in the body. So anything that brings about discomfort in the body can be termed as a disease. So to define disease, it is a condition or state where the morphology, that is the structure and functionality of the body is disturbed. Function of the body is affected or it is disturbed. Then that state is called as a diseased state. So it's a condition where the structure of the body or the functioning of the body or both structure and functioning of the body is affected. Then we call that state as a diseased state, and the person is said to be suffering from a disease. The disease can be identified with the help of sign and symptoms. How does somebody know whether he or she has a disease? So symptoms, these are indicators of a underlying disease. So if we find these indicators, symptoms in our body, it could mean that we may have a disease. Some of the common symptoms are fever, headache, fatigue, that is tiredness, then stomach pain, cough. So these are the most common symptoms which lets us know that something is wrong with the body. So then what happens is, such a person, they will approach a clinic or a hospital. They will get themselves diagnosed with the help of a doctor. The doctor, after looking at the symptoms, is able to conclusively tell what exactly is the disease. So the symptoms should not be taken lightly, and immediately you should consult a physician or a doctor. So signs and symptoms tell us that there could be a disease. Talking about diseases can be classified generally into infectious diseases and non-infectious diseases. Infectious diseases, as the name itself suggests, these are diseases which are transmitted from an infected person to a healthy person. So transmitted from person to person. So that is from infected person to another person who may be healthy. Such diseases are called as infectious diseases, whereas non-infectious diseases that are not transmitted from the infected person to the healthy person. Examples, common examples for infectious diseases are cold, HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, pneumonia. These are very common examples of diseases that are spread from one person to another person. Whereas non-infectious diseases, it includes cancer. So cancer is the best example for non-infectious diseases. Other non-infectious diseases could be obesity. Of course, obesity is not a disease, it is a disorder. So that is about the classification of diseases. In the case of infectious disease, where the disease is spread from an infected person to a healthy person, there is almost always presence of a pathogen. Pathogen is the primary cause for the disease. It can be simply defined as a disease causing organism. So any organism responsible for causing the disease is called as a pathogen. And you know, most pathogens are parasites. These pathogens always they depend on a host. So these parasites could be present on the body or they could be present inside our body. Hence always causing damage to the host, resulting in the disease. So infectious diseases are caused by pathogens which bring about the disease condition. Let us now talk about some of the common diseases affecting human beings, discussing about the causative organism. What pathogen is responsible for the disease? What are the commonly displayed symptoms of the particular disease? And whether there is any diagnostic method to detect the disease and the possible cures of the disease. Also, how this disease is spread from one person to another person. In general, we can classify the pathogens into 5 or 6 categories. The most common pathogens found in human beings, affecting human beings, are bacteria, virus, protozoa, helminthes or worms, also fungus, and not mentioned in the textbook but known to cause diseases in human beings are certain abnormal proteins. So we will be discussing some representative members from each group causing a very common disease in human beings. Let us start with bacteria, then discuss about virus, protozoa, diseases caused by worms, and finally diseases caused by fungus.
The first bacterial disease is typhoid. Typhoid is caused by the bacteria Salmonella typhi. This bacteria is known to affect the small intestine, which is the target organ. So if it is affecting the small intestine, the route of entry of the pathogen into the body has to be through the mouth. So through contaminated food and contaminated water, when we consume this, the Salmonella typhi, it enters into the body. Once it enters into the body, there are certain classical symptoms of typhoid. Typhoid is also commonly called as typhoid fever. So fever is one common symptom, especially sustained high fever of a temperature 39-40 degrees Celsius for continuously for 3 or more days. It could mean typhoid fever. It is also accompanied by weakness, abdominal pain, constipation, headache, and loss of appetite. That means the person affected is disinterested in eating, therefore of course causing weakness. In severe cases of typhoid fever, it could cause pores in the small intestine and death can occur. So intestinal perforations are seen. So a person who displays these symptoms, it goes to the clinic, and there is a diagnostic technique called as Vidal test that is specific for typhoid fever. This test shows positive only if there is typhoid fever, not any other types of fever. So Vidal test is the confirmatory test for typhoid fever. So that is all about the typhoid. Of course, preventive measure is having access to clean, boiled drinking water and not to consume contaminated food. Let us now move on to the next bacterial disease, that is pneumonia. Pneumonia is once again caused by bacteria. The two pathogens are Streptococcus pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenzae. They target the alveoli of the lungs. So in this case, the lungs are affected, the alveoli are affected. The mode of transmission, it is an airborne disease. The infected person, while sneezing or coughing, they would release the aerosols or contaminated droplets containing the pathogen into air. So by inhaling, these droplets could be entering into the body. Also by sharing the utensils and glasses used by a infected person, the pathogen is transmitted from the infected person to a healthy person. Pneumonia being a disease of the respiratory system, the lungs, the symptoms are cough, headache, commonly displayed fever, and also fever chills. In severe cases of pneumonia, because the alveoli is affected, the exchange of gases does not take place in an efficient manner, oxygen supplied to the cells is less, so person may suffer from breathlessness, also fatigue, tiring, etc. Also, the lips and fingernails may turn grey to bluish in color because oxygen supply is deficient. So these are the common symptoms of pneumonia. How to prevent it, or what is the cure? In cases of mild pneumonia, antibiotics are given which can take care of the pathogen. Prevention is wearing a mask, avoiding going to crowded areas, also not sharing utensils used by the infected person, maintaining social distancing. So these are the common preventive measures available for pneumonia. Other than this, there are other bacterial diseases, most important ones being tuberculosis. We also have leprosy, then plague, etc., which are known to cause serious destruction in human population. Next, we move on to diseases caused by virus. The first disease is common cold. The name itself is suggestive. It is a very common disease. It affects the respiratory passage and nose, but it does not affect the lungs. So in that way, it is different from pneumonia and tuberculosis. It affects only the nose and the respiratory passage. The virus which is responsible for common cold, it belongs to a family of viruses called as rhinoviruses. The means of spread is, of course, it is an airborne disease. Once again, inhaling droplets or aerosols from infected person. Also, touching contaminated objects such as pen, book, cup, utensils, doorknobs, computer keyboard, mouse, etc. So, a person who is suffering from common cold, the most common symptoms are nasal congestion and discharge. So there will be running nose. So a person would touch their nose and unknowingly they might use the same hand to touch other common objects. Somebody else who uses these objects, they are also exposed to the pathogen. Other symptoms include sore throat. So there would be some kind of irritation in the throat. The voice may appear to be hoarse or rough, also accompanied by cough, headache and tiredness. The common cold, it will last for 5 to 7 days in general. Preventive measure is once again wearing mask and avoiding touching of contaminated objects, maintaining social distancing. Another viral disease that is very commonly prevalent in the current scenario is coronavirus. It is also known to affect the respiratory passage as well as the lungs in severe cases. We will also be discussing about another viral disease, AIDS, in detail after the end of these common diseases. Next, we move on to diseases caused by protozoa. Malaria is one of the most common diseases affecting human beings, which is caused by the protozoan Plasmodium. In general, there are 3 types of Plasmodium which is responsible for malaria: Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malariae and Plasmodium falciparum, of which Plasmodium falciparum is the deadliest one. This type of malaria may result in death also. The pathogen Plasmodium, it is transmitted by the vector, that is female Anopheles mosquito. From the time of infection, for the showing up of symptoms, there could be a lag period of around a week or 12 days. The common symptoms of malaria include fever followed by chills and shivering, which is accompanied by sweating also. So chills and high fever during the evening but absent during the daytime could be indication of malaria. Also body pain, muscular pain, headache are few other symptoms. Nausea, that is the feeling of vomit. The patient also becomes very weak and anemic within a few days. If not treated properly, other secondary complications may lead to death. Let us take a quick look at the life cycle of the malarial parasite Plasmodium, how it is transmitted from the mosquito to the human body, what happens to it inside the human body. So when the female Anopheles mosquito bites a person, the infectious particles called as sporozoites, which are present in the salivary gland of the mosquito, is transmitted into the blood of the person through the mosquito bite. From here, the infectious particles or the sporozoites, they reach the liver. In the liver, these undergo asexual reproduction and they increase in number. Once their number increases, they burst open the liver cells and the sporozoites are released into the blood, where they now affect the RBCs, the red blood cells. Once again, these parasites, they depend on the blood cells for their reproduction and they continue to multiply in number. Once their number increases, they once again destroy the red blood cells and they are released into the blood. The rupture of the red blood cell, it produces a substance called as hemozoin, which is responsible for the cold, chill and fevers. From here, the parasites, they affect other RBCs and where they produce the gametocytes, which is the sexual phase of the Plasmodium. Once again, when the mosquito bites the person, the gametocytes are now taken into the gut of the mosquito, where they undergo sexual reproduction or fertilization. The fertilization results in the production of a new generation, which from the gut are carried to the salivary gland and stored as sporozoites. Once again, when the mosquito bites the person, these sporozoites enter into the body of the human and the cycle continues. So the Plasmodium parasite, it requires two hosts to complete its life cycle. It completes its life cycle in the human body as well as in the body of the mosquito. Therefore, the mosquito, it acts as a carrier or a vector in transmitting the pathogen from one person to another person. Let us look at the preventive measures of malaria. Preventive measures for malaria include not allowing collection of stagnant water in and around residential areas, which are breeding ground for mosquito larvae. Also sprinkling of kerosene oil in ditches and other spaces where water gets collected. Use of mosquito net and mosquito repellents at home. Also anti-malarial drugs can be taken for curing malaria. So mostly it includes preventive measures in order for preventing the spread of the disease. Let us next look at the next protozoan disease, that is amoebiasis. Amoebiasis, or commonly called as amoebic dysentery, is caused by the protozoan Entamoeba histolytica. This protozoa is present in water. The pathogen, its target organ is the large intestine of human beings. The mode of transmission is through food, water, and also sometimes soil. The vectors in this case are the houseflies, which will transmit the pathogen from the feces of infected person to food products and water. Once this pathogen enters the large intestine, it results in symptoms such as abdominal pain and cramps, also constipation. In serious cases, stools with excess mucus and blood clots could be seen, which are the symptoms of amoebic dysentery. Prevention is covering of food and food products so that houseflies do not get attracted to them. Also drinking clean boiled water, covering the water sources with proper covers, or periodic disinfecting of the water can be done. Next disease is filariasis, which is caused by helminthus or worm. Elephantiasis or filariasis is caused by the pathogen Ushereria bancrofti and Ushereria malai, which are the two species of Ushereria known to cause the disease elephantiasis. The name elephantiasis, it comes from the origin elephant foot. So the feet, the lower limbs, they get swollen, resulting in the name. Once again, this pathogen is transmitted with the help of a vector, female Culex mosquito, which targets the lymphatic vessels of the lower limbs, which is the target organ. The common symptoms of elephantiasis, that is the swelling of groin lymph nodes, lymph ducts are blocked, fever, the skin tissue, it becomes thick, and the lymphatic system is also damaged. The symptoms may not show up as soon as the infection. So in this case also, from the time of infection till the time symptoms show up, there could be a lag. The lag could be a few weeks, months, or in some cases, as recorded in the medical history, could be years together, where the pathogen is sitting safe inside the lymph nodes without causing any damage to the organ involved. So that is all about elephantiasis or filariasis. Once again, this is spread by the vector mosquito. So all the preventive measures applicable for malaria is applicable for this disease also. The next helminth disease caused by a worm is Ascariasis. Ascariasis is caused by the pathogen Ascaris, which belongs to the family of roundworms or Ascalmenthus. It targets the intestine of human beings. These worms are transmitted mostly from contaminated water and soil. So the eggs of this Ascaris, it is excreted along with the feces of infected person, and which will contaminate soil, water and plants. So by consuming such contaminated water, vegetables and fruits grown in the contaminated soil, the pathogen makes its entry into the body of the human. The common symptoms include fever and body pain. Also, in serious cases, there is internal bleeding, blockage of the intestinal passage, and anemia, that is the deficiency of iron. So, preventive measures for Ascariasis include drinking clean boiled water and washing the vegetables and fruits before consuming them. Also, people who work in nurseries and garden etc., they should be properly covered, because if the feet has wound, through this wound also the pathogen can gain entry into the body. So the preventive measures for Ascariasis. Next, we look at diseases caused by fungus. Funguses are known to cause variety of skin diseases in human beings. One of such skin disease is called as ringworm. So ringworm is a fungal infection of the skin. It is not caused by worms. The name ringworm is given because the infection, it as seen in the diagram, it appears in the shape of a ring, therefore the name ringworm. The fungus which is responsible for this disease, they are of three different genus: Microsporum, Trichophyton and Epidermophyton, which are responsible for the ringworm. Let us look at the symptoms and mode of transmission of this particular disease. Since the pathogen affects the skin, the symptoms include the appearance of dry, scaly lesions on various parts of the body, mostly skin, nails and scalp, that is the head region. Also redness, slight amount of swelling and a lot of itching is accompanied by this disease. The presence of heat and moisture will help these fungi to grow. Therefore, these are seen in areas of the feet between the toes and also near the groin where moisture is present. How is this disease spread from the infected person to healthy person? By using the towel, clothes or even the comb of infected individuals. So sharing of personal stationery materials can cause this disease. Also they can be acquired from the soil. So preventive measures include maintaining personal hygiene and not sharing the clothes and other toiletry materials with the infected person. After going through the most common diseases in human beings, let us look at the general preventive and control measures of such infectious diseases. As we discussed in the beginning of the lesson, maintaining personal hygiene and public hygiene is of utmost importance. Consumption of clean drinking water, food, vegetables and fruits, proper disposal of waste and excreta also plays an important role. Periodic cleaning of nearby surroundings, disinfection of water, cesspools and tanks, and at the level of the society, regular immunization programs for commonly spread diseases. All this will help to keep these infectious diseases under control. Let us look at some other measures, unconventional ways of keeping the infectious diseases under control. We saw in the case of malaria, filariasis, in the case of amoebiasis, etc., These diseases are caused by vectors like mosquitoes and insects. So prevention of mosquito-borne diseases and other vector-borne diseases include avoiding stagnation of water around residential areas, a regular cleaning of household and household coolers, use of mosquito nets, mosquito repellents, covering the windows and doors with mosquito mesh, etc. Also, introducing fishes like gambusia in lakes and ponds, which can feed on the mosquito larvae, is a traditional biological way of controlling the malarial parasite. Spraying of insecticides is also helpful. Keeping the doors and windows closed or covering with mesh, as we discussed, is another preventive measure for controlling mosquito borne diseases. For houseflies, covering the food with proper covers is helpful. Let us now look at two important diseases other than these commonly occurring diseases. The two important diseases we are going to study, first one is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or called as AIDS, and second disease we are going to study in this class is about cancer.